Welcome to Her Vision, Her Voice, a show where we celebrate the bold and powerful voices of women, women of color, and women in the LGBTQ plus community who are redefining the music and film industries. I'm your host, Aline Kazarian, and in each episode, we'll dive into conversations with trailblazers who have turned obstacles into opportunities, using their vision to amplify their voices and inspire change. Today, I will be joined by Jamee Ranta in the second hour of the show. Jamee is an award-winning executive producer and entrepreneur who has shaped the visual narratives of some of the biggest names in music, including Justin Bieber, Cardi B, Selena Gomez, and Jennifer Lopez, just to name a few. As the founder of Artifact Content, she's behind some of the most culturally defining music videos and campaigns, including Justin Bieber's billion-view hit Peaches and Halsey's cinematic experience, If I Can't Have Love, I Want Power. Beyond music, she's pioneering new frontiers in AR, VR, and digital storytelling, all while championing female leadership in the industry. And now I'm very happy to say that I am joined in the studio by Jamee Ranta. Jamee, welcome to the studio. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm very good. How are you?
I'm doing great. And you just said this is your first live sort of situation. You've never done radio before, so I'm really excited for you to be on air.
I'm excited. I'm honored, and I can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah, it's going to be a chill and fun conversation. But let's get started with talking about your background and just your upbringing. You've built such an incredible career as an executive producer and an entrepreneur, but I want you to take us back all the way to when you were growing up. And I want you to paint us a picture of maybe how your upbringing was, in a sense, motivational for you, or maybe a driver for you to even think about wanting to get into producing, or if you were in a completely different mindset.
I think the answer is both. If I really think about it, my upbringing, I was raised by artists, and I was very much involved in the art communities from a very early age. My mother's brother, he was a director in off-Broadway in theater. And then my father was a musician. And all of my uncles were musicians, artists, painters. They definitely all lived the starving artist life. So I come from very humble beginnings, very humble upbringings. I kind of was really interested in space and the science community. And I did very well in school, considering I was in public school. In the inner city. So it was something that inspired me, but I did go to schools for the arts growing up. So it's definitely, you can see how art has shaped me. It was my backup plan. However, I've made the most of it. Yeah. And I continue to learn and grow every single day. And I think that's something that kind of fuels me, is like, it doesn't matter how old I get or how much experience I have. There's always some new hurdle, some new challenge. There's always new opportunities to explore new ways to change your perspective and look at the experience from a different viewpoint. And that's kind of where the artist version of me comes out. But in the very beginning, I would say that my upbringing was difficult, very challenging, very humbling, and very creative and artistic all at the same time. I loved arts and sciences, and my goal was to be a quantum physicist. So I originally entered Wright State University in Ohio, in Dayton, Ohio, to hopefully become a quantum physicist, which at the time was very like faux pas in the physics world. And now it's like, quantum computing is, everyone wants to use the word quantum, the quantum cosmetics. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, okay, guys, you're doing the most. You're being very artistic with your focus here and your word choice. But yeah, so that was my goal. Tried to join the Air Force during the war in Iraq.
Wow.
And a lot of my friends in high school went straight out of high school and joined the Air Force, because I grew up near Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Hence, my college was Wright State University. It's right by the Wright-Patterson facilities. And named after the Wright brothers because, sorry, North Carolina, flight started in Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah.
So lots of innovation, lots of art, lots of turmoil and struggle is what brought me to where I'm at today. So I'm extremely humbled, extremely grateful to be where I'm at. And I hope that all I can do is learn and grow. And I kind of have that approach in most of what I do.
Yeah. So you didn't join the Air Force. You didn't pursue quantum physics.
I didn't.
But was there a moment where something just switched for you and you thought, okay, well, producing, that's what I'll do? Like, what was that path like?
So yes and no. It was a very different path. So I was tried to join the Air Force, didn't get in for physical reasons, not for my mental or my qualifications in terms of, academics, but in terms of, I'm a small, petite woman. Let's just paint the picture here for our audience.
I'm right there with you.
And in my mind, I'm extremely strong and I will, I'm resilient, I'm hardworking. And for whatever reason, I just didn't pass the physical test. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm not going to be a war hero. I guess I have to find something else. I had a bit of an existential crisis in a general education class. I think it was like English. And the guy next to me, I was like, what do you do? And he was like, what do you mean? And I'm Doug. And I was like, what do you do, Doug? What do you do at school here? And he was like, I'm a film student. And I was like, that's it. That's what I'm going to do.
Wow.
I can do film. The funny part about it is at that time I had worked with, I started a company with my friend, like doing portrait photography. It was I read this book, Digital Photography for Dummies. Mm-hmm. And it was like everyone was moving from film to digital and they were like, film is dead. And everyone was nervous. And I was like, I can do this. This is math, angles, depth of field. I have an artistic eye. Sure, I'll figure this out. I'll tell everyone I'm a photographer. I took like yearbook class in high school and I convinced all of the people in the grade below me to let me do their senior portraits. And I had a studio, and we just knocked them out. And I just did a bunch of, that was my job. So I never really understood the corporate world. I never really experienced the corporate world. Part of me wishes I did, because then I could have a better understanding of business and probably wouldn't have had to make so many mistakes as I progressed in my business journey here. However, I did learn a lot by just doing it. And I think I was young and dumb and read the book for dummies and I understood it and I did a decent job and I ended up doing that. So when Doug was like, film, I was like, done. That I can do, because I'll be a cinematographer, because photography and cinematography can probably transition, and it's scientific in a sense. There's a lot of calculations and I like to tinker with objects and things, and it kind of would strike up a little bit of an engineering side of me. So I switched schools and went and got my bachelor's of science in film. I know a lot of people get their BFAs, bachelor's of fine arts, or BAs. I got a bachelor's of science in film, and my whole focus was cinematography, lighting, light and shadow, and that's what I moved out to LA for, was to be a cinematographer.
Interesting.
Yes.
So when you met Doug and he said that he studied film, was there a specific reason that you decided to go to a different school instead of just studying at the same school that he was also studying film at, or
just personal things going on in my life? I was like, I wanted to run from my problems and run away from my family dynamic at the time. And now I face them head on, even though they're really difficult and challenging.
That's what life does to you.
But young Jamie just wanted to run away.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm just, going to go to Florida and we'll switch schools. And I went to Full Sail University, which was originally in Dayton, Ohio. Surprise. A lot of things were actually. We had Paramount Kings Island that I grew up going to, which is like Paramount's old school version of Disneyland or
Awesome.
Universal. It doesn't exist anymore. But there was like a film moment in Dayton, which sounds strange. Because Ohio Riz is not a vibe these days. But so I go to Full Sail and run out to LA on a hope and a dream. I lived in what I didn't know at the time was a halfway house for my first 3 months here. I was like, why does everyone seem to be struggling, with some vices? And then the guy that was running the house was like, oh, this is a halfway house. And I was like, oh, cool.
Damn.
I wish I knew that when I signed the month-to-month agreement here, But it was nice because I was able to like see a part of LA straight off the bat that, without that glass and that glimmer glass,
Yeah.
without the soft effects filter on it. And I was able to just get straight into the realness of what the city can and cannot do.
Mm-hmm.
And I just honestly fell in love. I had more with the city because of it.
Yeah.
When you see all sides of something, you can really understand things better. And if you have empathy, which I think the best thing about the Western world is empathy.
Yeah.
And I think if you have empathy and you have a sense of awareness and understanding, and you have the artistic perspective of putting yourself in someone else's shoes, or just like, that's what film is all about. This is storytelling is all about. And it helps strengthen the human connection. And that's what we do. And that's why I fell in love with film.
Yeah.
Which is the same reason why I loved science and technology, because when you have an opportunity to find a tool, whether it's fire in a very, very primitive way, or whatever the tool is to help bring warmth and light to the world. And as long as you use that tool for a positive purpose and to share goodness, I'm like, this is why I'm here.
Yeah.
So that's my core purpose. That's where I come from. That's my awkward transitional journey. And then what brings me into producing was interesting. Jimmy Iovine's right-hand lady at the time, Michelle Ahn over at Interscope, told somebody that I was a young, scrappy producer. And I was like, yeah, I was shooting that. But I guess because I took control of the set in that way, she misunderstood. And I was like, if this woman's, co-signing me, I need the money. So
yeah. Interesting. So you weren't necessarily telling people that you were producing. It just so happened that you were on set and you started doing producer-like things and people picked up on that.
Yes.
Crazy.
And I think my skill sets was I'm a really good problem solver. So I think I went above and beyond outside of my role, which I should have stayed in my lane here and there a time or two. And again, you live and you learn and you get better at discerning when is a good time to be mindful and step up to the plate, and when is a good time to just let something fall apart.
Yeah.
But I have that savior complex. I really have a hard time letting things fall apart.
Yeah.
And I just want to but if you just do this, you'll fix it, So early Jamie kind of took the reins in ways she probably should have not. But it did give me an opportunity in a way that completely changed the trajectory of my career, and I wasn't planning for it, and I didn't think that was the case. And, at the time, I was dating somebody who was also a cinematographer, and that's quite conflicting when you have the same goals. And it was right after 2008 and the crash and economy, and you don't want to be in conflict with competition. And so I was like, I guess I'll move into this producing thing. But it ended up being a very beautiful, long, fun, challenging, wonderful, wild ride that I call life.
Yeah. Wow. It's so crazy that it seems like it sort of happened out of nowhere, but it also feels like, from what you've explained, that whatever you experienced in your life leading up to that point, where Michelle Ahn was basically like the co-signer. Mm-hmm. It just all felt like it was supposed to happen, like it was all bound to happen to lead you to that place.
Yes.
Do you think there's a part of you that ever felt like, especially once you moved to LA, do you think there was ever a part of you that felt like you regretted not pursuing quantum physics, or you regretted not pursuing another thing in your life? Or were you happy with how things were moving forward?
Okay, that's a deep question, and I'm happy to answer it genuinely and authentically. So a lot of people say no regrets, no regrets. And it's like, no, everyone lives with regrets.
Thank you.
Everyone lives with regrets. You are going to be on your deathbed and you are going to have something that you regret. But when you look back, my fiance always says this, when you look back, the dots connect. And you have to understand that it's like it rains on the just and the unjust. Hard times happen. There's a lie that we've been told. Let me go back to this because I think this is important. There's a lie that we've been told, especially the millennial generation, that if you work hard and you do good and you do the right thing, you will be rewarded in life with safety, security, opportunity, and freedom. And I believe that to an extent. I believe that is possible and that thought is possible. But I also believe that you're given certain cards that a certain hand that you have to work with. And then in addition to that, there are things outside of your control that can happen to you and change and shape you. And it's not about what happens to you. It's about how you deal with it. So for me, yes, I would say there's been some regret, but I have way more gratitude and way more, I'm at peace with the way my life has panned out. And I made the best with the cards that I had. And I am proud of a lot of the achievements that I had, not because I'm Grammy nominated this, got to work with so-and-so, but because of the lessons that I learned along the way, the amount of people I was able to help bring up in their careers. And then, like I said, earlier when we were talking before we were on air, like I must have like 15 people that were like my PAs that I've brought up. And now they're, they have their production companies and they're, doing better than me. And I have to say, like, I'm very proud of them and I'm very proud of the lessons because I didn't really have a mentor. I didn't really know what I was doing in this industry. It's not like I'd always known that this is what I want to be when I grow up. So for me, being able to be a mentor to so many, being able to curate talent in a way where they can feel safe and express themselves until they're like, I don't need you anymore, until they're at the defiant teenager age and then they go out and then you're proud of them as an adult. I feel like there's a motherly relationship with all of the people that I was able to help bring up and inspire. And a lot of times I was hard on them. And I'm sure they'll be like, well, Jamie was hard on me here, or whatever it might be. But, I think that helps shape people too. And it comes from a place of love and a place of deep care. And so I think I'm most proud of that. And I'm most proud of the growth and the constant curiosity and eagerness to learn up until I take my last breath.
Yeah. What would you say is one of the earliest lessons that you learned? Because I'm getting this idea that there is a distinction between early Jamie and present day Jamie. So what were some of those early lessons, or maybe just one early lesson that you were then maybe even able to share with your mentees or, people that you were being quote unquote hard with maybe at the time?
I would say I didn't understand how the business side of production works, the business side of the film industry works. And that was a really hard early learning lesson for me because I'm a resilient. I'm the kind of person that will step up to the plate and take risks. Even later on in my life, with my career, I tend to take risks. If I feel passionate about something, I will do it. And those are all wonderful qualities. If you understand how the business works, you have to be mindful that there are people out there that are very self-centered or might have very, self-serving interests and reasons on why they want to be a filmmaker, why they want to be a director. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying it's different. And I just assumed everyone was like me. And assuming everyone is like you is the most, the biggest mistake I think early Jamie made. I just thought everyone had good intentions and everyone, wanted the collective to be a certain way. And that is not how everybody thinks. Again, I'm not saying it's wrong. That's just not everyone thinks that way. Some people are more competitive, and some people are more concerned about taking care of themselves, which I can understand that perspective of, if you're in survival mode, as we all have felt it these last couple of years post-COVID, everyone's kind of been shifting into survival mode and, put the mask on yourself before assisting others and taking that self-care to the extreme, which is, again, self-care is extremely important. However, I'm all about balance, I'm all about the scales and the yin and the yang. And when something feels like it's starting to tip, maybe reassess, maybe re-question and think. That's kind of how I am about how it affects not only myself, but others around me. So I would say that early Jamie needed to learn that not everyone thinks like you, and that's okay. It only made me a better storyteller.
Yeah.
And there were some hard lessons along the way, in terms of relationships, because in the film industry, relationships are so important. So being mindful of your goals, your intentions, and your focus, and aligning with other people who have the same goals, intentions, and focus, and still consider connecting with those who don't, for perspective's sake, for diversity in your path, in your plan, in your approach, in your structure. And then I would say I didn't know anything about business. I didn't know how to form a company. And here I was, I've always been self-employed. I've always had a company. I didn't know about taxes. Oh my God. The first 3-4 years I made money, I was hit with those tax bills and I cried and I ate ramen noodles and I struggled with rent and my mental health.
Right.
But now that you learn about how taxes work, about the business side of things, I can plan for the future better. I can build a better business for myself and my team, and a better structure with long-term goals and short-term goals. And I just, when you're an artist, you don't think about those things so much. You just think about the art, and you are diehard artists, and you go, if you're a go all in type of person, you have to balance it out with lessons on business.
Yeah.
And being a producer, not a lot of people talk about what that looks like, or the risk involved in production, the responsibilities. They just think it looks cool. It's a job of service.
I think in general, maybe you'll be able to empathize with this too, considering that, you got a BA in science and film. But I remember even when I attended Art Center College of Design, the last term that you spent at the school was when you got an experience in business, or, you were able to take a class that sort of, was able to share with you what those moments would look like in the future. But I just remember looking around one time in class and everybody was so tired. Everybody was so just ready to graduate. Because everybody was planning out their shows, and just like it was a month away and everybody was so checked out that I don't know if a lot of that information even registered with people. And it always seemed like there was a lack of a way to actually educate students on how to handle business, because even if you are going to get out of school and then work at a corporate company, I think it's still beneficial to have an understanding of business, regardless of whether you're an employee or you are your own employer, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm curious to know for you, considering that you also mentioned that you didn't have any mentors, were there people that you were talking with who you were able to have at least, these conversations around questions like taxes or how to even start your own business or how to handle business in general? Or was it more of a trial and error, learn as you go, just you were solo?
I was solo. It was trial and error. It was seeing what other companies that I worked for did, learning just by observation, and researching. Back in the old Google days, which isn't a lot of information.
Yeah.
and I literally had a library card.
Yeah.
And I was like, one year when I was like, what do you mean taxes? And I was like, I need to learn it. And one of my colleagues was like, I have a CPA. And I was like, what's a CPA? They're like, they help you do your taxes. And I was like, okay. What do I need for that? And this was probably the most, mentorship I got from Luga at London Alley back in the day. He was my colleague. And I go to the CPA and he was like, you just bring all the rap books and stuff that you do on your jobs and, the total amount of money, that your QuickBooks files. And I was like, QuickBooks files? So I got an Excel and I made a chart of all of the profits that I made over the course of the year. And it wasn't any profit, but I also didn't pay any taxes. And so it was like an interesting thing. And I packed up every rap book, which wasn't digital back in the day. I had like these big 3-ring binders, these massive like 3-inch 3-ring binders. I put it all in a big suitcase and I showed up and I walked in and I was like, here's my suitcase. Let's get to work. Wow. And he was like, he just laughed. He laughed so hard. He was like, this girl with her suitcase.
I mean, you went in prepared.
I was like, I'm going to learn about accounting today. Yeah. This is what I'm here to do. And he's like, that will come at a cost. But I think that I humored him. So he was very, he was gentle with me those first few years with his fees. But it was definitely a massive learning curve because nobody told me these things.
Yeah.
And they were so fundamental to what I do because, like I said earlier, a producer is a position of service with heavy responsibility and liability. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, for me anyways, you have, in movies and features and TV shows, you've got your executive producers and then you've got your line producers and then you've got your showrunners and then you've got your creators. And, there's a little bit of like gray area when people get, then you've got your funders, like your investors, funders. Then you've got your investors who get the producer title, but they just are looking for an ROI, which means return on investment for the artists out there that don't know. An ROI is return on investment. I did not know that for a long time. So it's interesting to kind of see how production has shaped and being a producer and what that means and breaking down what those roles and responsibilities are. And I've kind of done everything, all of the above. But again, I come from more of an artistic, scientific background. So business was it was not natural for me. I had really bad grammar and really poor communication skills. I would text people like 3-word sentences and they would always think I was angry with them. And I would be like, well, isn't texting for just like quick conversation? Right. Like we're just getting the gist here.
Yeah.
I got the information across. Now I learned how to utilize emojis and then extended that into my Spanish. So now I can joke better in Spanish and English. Dating my current fiance, I've learned a lot about grammar and pronunciation. So I think that communication skills beyond personable conversation in business is so important and so overlooked. Yeah. And I just kind of ran through it thinking oh, it's not that big of a deal, and unintentionally offended people with my short text quite often. So I would say early Jamie knew none of this, the business side of things. And it's been a long journey.
Yeah. And speaking of business, you did eventually start Artifact Content. So yes. At what point in your career were you at where you were just like, okay, I have to do my own thing. I have an understanding of business. I can do this. You know, what was that moment in life for you? What did things look like for you? And what ultimately, you know, made you want to even start something for yourself?
Well, I've always had my own business. It was just called Jamee Ranta Productions, and I didn't want it to be about me. And one of my colleagues and my best friends, Rob, was like, every time I'd call him, he'd be like, "Is this a Jamie job?" And I would be like, "Oh God." So I wanted to rebrand myself with my new business knowledge. And I wanted to also set up a corporation to kind of also an entity that separates me, the individual, from the production. And I wanted it to feel very much not about me.
Yeah.
I wanted it to feel authentic about the preservation of art. And so I named it Artifact. And I feel like my hope for Artifact, even if it changes names or even if it's a different entity, or as I continue on my journeys and find a partner, if we rebrand, restructure, I hope the fundamental themes that were there from the beginning of me creating it stay and last. I'm really into art and preservation, and I think it's important as we move. I'm also into creation and sometimes destruction. Sometimes you got to throw things out and start anew.
Yeah.
So I'm very much, but I think for the film company, preservation and creating a moment in history is more important than myself as an individual.
Yeah. And what were those early days like when you started the company? You know, what were things looking like in the beginning? Did you have any fears about anything? And then also, how do you see it growing now that you're in this place? And what are some of the, you know, things that you want to accomplish with it, you know, as it continues to expand?
So in the early days, were there fears is the question. Yes, of course. I am sometimes a scared little girl and sometimes a courageous, strong warrior.
Yeah.
And sometimes both at the same time. And with a little sprinkle of humor, I was like, I'm going to go to the beach and I'm going to write the name in the sand. That's going to be it. Mm-hmm. And I wrote Big Old Christmas Hams, and I wrote Raven Ranta Productions, and I wrote all the most like ridiculous things that I could think of, and I was just being really like humorous about it to kind of help with the fear part. And then I just did it one day and was like, it's done, let's see. And again, I hope that it grows, and if it changes in name or in structure, business structure, or if I partner with somebody, which is the goal in the future, or if I sell it, I do hope that the fundamental elements that are there and that they last and that they preserve and that it can continue on to create and cultivate art and an expression of culture in this era.
Yeah. What would you say is a standout project that you've had the opportunity to work on through Artifact?
A standout project. There's something that I'm working on right now that I can't say.
Okay.
That I've been working on for a couple of years now, mm-hmm. that could be historical.
Okay.
If it goes through with the distributor. And I think that it's very beneficial for education and for culture. And I'm really hoping that this project can see through so that the audience can see it, in the development stages for a long time. And I'm ready to see it take flight. And I hope that I can really create something impactful.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we're working on right now. Can't get into too much detail about that. And then I think that more recently, I haven't put any stuff out in the past year, but in the past year, I have been doing a lot of creative direction with a major headphone company that I'm really excited about. They've been an incredible company to work with and to partner with on the creative side. Been able to really kind of hone in on a lot of cool cultural moments throughout the last year and a half. And I'm really proud of a lot of the work that we've done. I just started posting things like last week. I've been really bad at marketing myself because I've been doing marketing for everyone else. But I do like the cool cultural moments that I've been able to be a part of and shape on the commercial side of things. And then I did last year do a really cool short film with one of my colleagues, Was Good. We both went to school together back in 2008. And we decided that we were going to self-fund, self-create and Alan in the cut, by the way, he's our editor / producer. We all went to school together and we decided we would get the Avengers back together and do a short film that was like The Boys meets superhero, but make it not so superhero-y. All the things we don't like about major superhero movies, we're just going to shove those in the background and make it about a story of struggle and a story of overcoming obstacles and a story of how technology and the power of certain members of society and not others, and how to navigate that experience. And we were able to create a short film that did very well in the film circuit last year. And I think that's going to become something bigger. And we've had a lot of wonderful opportunities. We just did a little distribution deal with a major airline, which is nice for a short film. We've been able to get into a lot of film festivals. And this was my first time really getting into the film festival route of things. And we were very blessed and very grateful just to work with each other after all of this time. We hadn't worked together in many, many years. And so it was really nice to see everyone more mature, more organized, more handle problems with more efficiency and with the bigger goal in mind. So it was a wonderful experience.
Do you feel like, speaking of, reigniting certain friendships or, work collaborations with people, do you feel like your creative process, the way that you approach your creative process has changed from early Jamee to present day Jamee?
Absolutely.
In what ways?
So, I would say I'm a better communicator and I'm a better listener, which means I'm a better listener. I know on this show I've been doing an awful lot of talking, but that's what you asked me.
This is the whole point.
I like to be the quiet one in the room and listen and observe for the most part. And I think that before I would just see a problem and see a solution and just speak my mind at all times. Again, that is a very good trait to have if you have discernment on when to speak and when not to. And I know that no one wants to hear that part, but that is a very important, true part. So creatives need to be in a creative space so that they can get into a state of flow. And that is when their best work happens. And their best work is usually based off of some sort of subconscious emotional experience. And so you have to kind of ride on those tail feathers very carefully and with mindfulness. You can't just be extremely opinionated in those rooms, because they're going to be the one that's going to be extremely opinionated in those rooms. And when you work with people who are that way, I used to be, old Jamie would basically just shut people down a little bit more and be like, that's not going to work out. That's not a great idea. Whether I was right or not, it doesn't matter. It's the approach. You don't want to just shut people down. It's dismissive and it can come off disrespectful. Again, even if I was right, it does not matter. I realize now more so, I only speak up if it's a danger or a safety issue, and I will very boldly and aggressively speak up. If it is a creative issue, I will be a little bit more mindful about how I communicate and a little bit more sensitive on how I pull out that information or how I make suggestions. And in response, I've realized, especially working with older colleagues, that they appreciate that and that they're more open and more mindful and more thoughtful about accepting outside feedback. And that's where you can kind of do the perspective shifts. Okay, if this person views it like this person views it like this. If we want to reach an audience and have them understand the core values here, no matter what their demographic or background, then what is the fundamental story we need to tell to reach to a wider audience so that it can really emotionally connect? And how does that work for everybody? And that's when you start to have really good conversations where you can create a story that has a better chance of connecting to an audience, which is always the goal. And then if you get the audience in front of the film, it does better. Your film does better. There's the purpose of making the film is achieved.
You mentioned navigating experiences earlier, and I'm curious to know how, amidst all of the projects you've worked on and being under pressure and having a lot of stress and having a lot of different people's opinions to sift through, and, you're the producer. So like you said, there's a lot of responsibilities that the producer has to be able to, handle. So when you're navigating all of these experiences, how are you making sure to also set time for yourself? Because again, self-care is very important. So how have you made sure to take care of yourself in those very high stress moments and to just ensure that you have time for yourself?
So I'll tell you what I used to do and what I do now. And I'm not saying one's better than the other. When I was in high pressure environments and we were pumping out 3-4 productions a week.
Wow.
It was unmanageable for a small team.
And were these all music videos or was
music videos, commercials?
Okay.
When you're pumping out 3 to 4 music videos, commercials a week, it's unheard of, first off.
Yeah.
And second off, it's mentally, physically, emotionally draining. And when you're at the top and you are the leader and you're in a position to create an environment for your team to continue to work, you have to take care of yourself. Now, what I did in those moments was I may or may not have unintentionally taught this to some of my team members who became successful producers. I said, we're going to compartmentalize that. We're going to take those feelings and we're going to put it into a little box and we're going to deal with it later. We are going to deal with it, but we're not going to deal with it right now because if our emotions get involved, then it's going to affect the production. And I think there's some good advice in that because I am very sensitive. I'm a very feely, lovey, emotional being. And so the other side of that, the shadow side of that, is that I can be a hothead sometimes. And so I'm telling myself these things because it's important for me to regulate my emotions in the moment and not let it affect other people. And I think that's a very important thing to have. Now, when you do that for an extended period of time and you don't have any downtime to decompress, emotions can be stored in the body and can materialize in stress, can materialize as cancer. It can materialize as ailments, physical ailments, because your body can only handle so much. And I got to a point where I dealt with some medical issues, and it was very devastating for me. And I thought that, when you hear, about terminal illnesses, or you think you're going to die, you kind of shift perspective, and you're like, wait, my health is important. I do matter, because I'm very much of a service, like, this isn't about me. Everything that I do is for a bigger purpose, and all of that is good, but you got to put your mask on yourself before assisting others. Yeah. So I took some time off. I still did some media things. I still did some mentorship things, still, worked on a few projects, but for the most part, I took a long downtime. And when you take a long downtime, the comeback is much harder, because life moves on with or without you. Mm-hmm. And the next thing you know, the next generation is up and moving. And there's a moment where I was like, am I supposed to do this still? Or, like, what's my next, what do I want to be when I grow up? It's that midlife crisis. It's that when you've achieved what you set out to do career-wise and you're ready for the next thing, it's that transitional phase that you need to process and you need to understand. And the big lesson for me was take care of myself. I wasn't doing well in my personal life, with my relationships, and I wasn't doing well with my health. And I took a lot of time to really take care of myself, because it was much needed. And it's what a lot of people say is burnout. Mm-hmm. Mine, unfortunately, came in the moment of health issues, some serious stuff. So after I was able to overcome and manage and reassess myself and get my health in a good place, I was like, all right, now is the hard part. How do we get back to things? How do I do things differently with the similar mentality? Because it is good to, compartmentalize your emotions, but you also need to have time and schedule time out to process the experiences, reflect on the lessons learned, so that you can make better choices moving forward, so that you can feel things fully and move through them. So that is something that now Jamee has learned and experienced through all of that.
What's crazy is that we're already getting close to the show ending, and I'm thinking that we need a part 2 because there's so much more I want to ask you, but I feel like, we're going to have to run this back. We have to run it back and have you back on the show. But the one thing that I would love for you to touch on in closing, and especially since you've brought it up a couple times as we've had this conversation, is you're serving a bigger purpose. And I want you to share what that bigger purpose is, especially if inclusivity and female empowerment and leadership is part of it. Mm-hmm. And I want you to talk about your role in that and what importance that has for you in your life.
And serving a bigger purpose?
Yeah.
I hope that up and coming female filmmakers can look at my trajectory as a positive thing. And I hope that they can say, okay, if she can do this, I can too, if they really want to do that. I hope, and I'm very proud of the way our industry has kind of taken shape into more honoring women in film, and to make space for a female perspective. I do think there's room to grow. A lot of room to grow, but I'm very grateful for how far we've come. And I think that having different perspectives, which includes female perspectives and also stories from all over the world with different cultural backgrounds, different gender preference backgrounds, I think these stories, whether you align or agree with whatever it is, need to be told. And that you finding the human element in everything that we experience is so important, because we're all here on this earth. We're all experiencing this reality. And we have like a collective understanding, we're all having individual experiences, but we're all part of something that's going to be continuing after we die. And not to be morbid or dark, but I think that is important to connect while we're here, to be present, and especially as a filmmaker and a storyteller, having experiences that all types of people can connect to is so important.
Yeah.
So we got to tell these different stories.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that there's a whole other aspect to what you just brought up, which has to do with funding and making sure that those stories are actually made, that I'd love to ask you about. But unfortunately, we don't have the time to get into it because I feel like it's a big conversation. But I couldn't agree more with you. And I think that there is still so much room to grow and for people to have the ability to see people on screen who they can relate to. That's such a massive thing that I think we still need more of. I'm so tired of seeing just more and more superhero movies being remade over and over again, or, it's just all about IPO. Like, can we please fund stories that actually have something more to say, Even if we're making, I gotta be honest with you, I love wartime stories. Yeah. I love action films. Yeah. And as a female, I think I'm really grateful for my colleagues asking me my input and altering certain shots or certain things to give it more of a feminine perspective, or just to respect and honor my perspective. I think that's so important because they're like, oh, I didn't think of it that way. I didn't see it that way. And it's like, of course they didn't. Yeah. And that's but I'm grateful that they're listening. And I hope that it doesn't become a man versus woman, us versus them. We've got to understand, women are, we're so valuable. Yeah. We are only adding to great things, and our stories are diverse too. We experience battles. We experience, there's women in everything. Yeah. So just, it's nice to have a voice. Absolutely. And I think also
it's
perspective, I think, is probably one of the more important aspects of what we're talking about right now, because, as you said, you love wartime stories, you love action movies, and I agree, there's nothing wrong with those kinds of films, but I think perspective is what is important, right? Yeah. You can tell the same wartime story, but when it's from a different perspective, all of a sudden it can have a completely different feel and a completely different way of being able to relate to that story, or maybe even not relate, but have an understanding, right? And the core of all of us and of humanity is understanding each other and being able to connect with each other, especially in a very divided time right now. And honestly, what we've been experiencing for the last 5+ years, So yes, to your point, I think, just to add to your point, perspective and understanding are probably, at least in my mind, the most central components of storytelling and what we can do with storytelling.
Yes. And it's funny because one of my close friends in high school, we were cheerleaders together. Yes, guys, I was a cheerleader. We would do our makeup and glitter and all the things. And then we were going to join the Air Force together. She did. She got in. And so
that's crazy.
There you can be extremely feminine or what society calls feminine and a badass at the same time. Am I allowed to say that?
Of course you can.
And a badass. And I'm just that's the thing is quit these stereotypes. There's all types of women and they have all types of sides to them. Just let us have our voice and it will only better the world.
Yeah. I do want to leave you with just one final question. And this is something that I ask everybody on the show. And it really has to do with legacy. You may have answered it earlier about how, you hope that by other women seeing you do what you've done, that it would make them feel like, okay, I have a chance too. But I wonder if there is a bigger legacy for you that you want to leave behind when all is said and done. Is there something for you that you want to be able to be remembered by?
I believe that there were brilliant minds and brilliant filmmakers and brilliant women before me. And there will be brilliant minds, filmmakers, and brilliant, brave women that come after me. And all I hope is that I can be a strong link in the chain so that chain can continue.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Jamee, for being on the show. Can we please run it back? Will you please be on the show again in the future?
Yes, I had such a good time.
Well,
Thank
wonderful.
you.
I'm so glad that you did, because again, there's truly so much more that I would love to ask you, and I just genuinely appreciate you making the time to share your perspective,
Of course.
and share your journey and everything that you've been through. So this is all very valuable. Thank you so much for being on the show, Jamee.
Of course. Thank you for having me so much.
All right. So that does it for this month's episode of Her Vision, Her Voice. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I will be back next month on April 19th for the next episode. You can find the entire set list from the first hour of the show on the dublab website when the archived episode is out early next week. If you'd like to know more about my guest, Jamee Ranta, you can follow her on Instagram at Jamie3. I'm Aline Kazarian, and this is Her Vision, Her Voice. Stay tuned for more dublab programming coming up next. Have a great weekend, everyone.